Okay, we are recording. Okay, welcome everybody to the Contemporary Issues Sunday School class on March 21, a bright March day. And we are so pleased to have Rev Annie Arnoldy with us today. Again, a couple of years later, Annie, of course, used to be at St. Andrew as associate pastor, and she joined our class many times when we used to meet back in the building in room 250, and we are so pleased to reconnect with her today. So we're going to hear all about what Annie's doing with the conference and ask her questions. And but first, let's do the usual announcements. First one is please mute yourself in the lower left corner of your screen. Usually click on the mute icon so the background noise is kept down. And second, we are recording this for future playback. So this is your notice about recording. And finally, please be kind to our speaker and to each other. And don't dominate too much in your comments. If you've made a few comments, let other folks talk too. So with that, any other announcements? Folks, are you all doing good? Anybody started traveling? Again, anything personal to share? Concerns or joys? Susie, I think you're trying to talk.
Yeah, I got it. Friday, I'm going to New York to visit my daughter. So I figured I have my shots. She has her shots. So, you know, it's been a long time since I've seen them. And my grandson has vacation. So she's like, could you please come? So I'm going for like 4 days and wearing 10 masks in the airport and all that. But since I have my shot and she had hers, I feel pretty safe.
Yeah. Well, you have to let us know what it's like to travel. Annie's probably been flying and traveling in this time anyway too. So
Jane and I completed our second week after the 14 days after our second shot on Friday. So yesterday we had a feeling of newfound freedom. We celebrated by Jane going to the grocery store.
Whoa.
And we went into a restaurant for dinner, and we were the only people in the dining room.
Good for
But we were wearing masks and, you know, keeping distance still. Here's that shirt I told you about. I don't know if you can read it. Make a friend with someone
I like it. I like it.
Look like you, and you may change the world.
Good for you.
I mentioned that last week.
That's great, Jim.
I just want to say how wonderful it is to be reunited with my grandchildren. Four under the age of 4. So it's fun.
Getting to see them again.
Yeah.
So true.
Did they know you, Linda?
Yes, I have been FaceTiming with them throughout this whole thing and have seen them kind of outdoors until it got really cold. So yes, of course.
We've been visiting our great granddaughter in my son's parking lot, and you know, she looks at us kind of quizzically, wondering who these old people are that she sees, you know, maybe every 10 days or so. She doesn't know us.
Very good. Okay.
You know, Steve, we finally got together with some friends that everybody had shots, you know, for a chilly dinner. So it was fun to finally get to do something other than just feel like you're stuck in the house. You know, so yeah, it was so good for the head, you know, for your head to just kind of about 6 people. What, Karen?
Your head in the park.
Yeah, your head in the park. Put it in a good place. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was great to do that.
Vicki and I have been doing that too, and I've joked with friends. I've got both my shots, rabies and distemper. So now I've got them both. So,
I need to get the rabies one, but yeah, exactly.
That's right. Well, let me go ahead and introduce Annie. Give a little, Shirley, go ahead first.
Our son from Utah, who lost his wife about a month ago, is coming to spend a week with us this week.
Good. Good. Okay, thank you. Okay, I'm going to just read a quick bio of Annie. So for those who don't know her, they can learn a little bit, and then we'll jump in, and Annie's got a few slides for us. And you want to take questions while you're talking, Annie? Is that okay? We don't have to wait till the end?
Yeah, that's fine with me if you kind of want to moderate that, and
We'll do that.
I'll go down our list of kind of the topics we wanted to hit, and then we can open it up completely to new things as
Super.
well.
Super. We'll be respectful and informal at the same time. Well, Annie grew up in Greenwood Village. She attended Colorado State University in Fort Collins to get an English degree. And later she went to the Isla School of Theology in Denver for her graduate degree. She was then appointed as associate pastor in Grand Junction at the UMC there and was there for 6 years before she took a few years off for family leave and had her 3 children. And her son Eric was part of that too. Her husband Eric was part of that too. Yes, thank you, Vicki. During that time, she served on several nonprofits in Grand Junction, and then she moved to the Front Range back here to be closer to family, and was appointed to St. Andrew, where she was associate pastor and pastor of discipleship. And she worked with those of us in adult education, welcoming and stewardship and finance and lots of things, and gave sermons. And so she was all over the place. Then she was appointed to her position with the Conference of Leadership Development and Connectional Ministries that she'll tell us about. And she still continues to come to St. Andrew and with the kids. So we are pleased to have Annie today. So tell us, Annie, what have you been doing? I know you've been traveling and leadershiping, and what does that all entail?
I love it. Thanks, Steve. Oh, it's great to see you all. I will tell you all about what I've been doing in my work, and really the surprising thing is I have done no work travel since last March approximately. It has all shifted to Zooms online. I spend each and every day on Zoom, usually with probably an average of 5 Zooms a day, varying from 30 minutes to 6 hours. The 6-hour ones are when we meet as a cabinet with Bishop Karen, and we do our work of appointing pastors. And that's really important work. And we do it each and every week, and especially during this time of the year, which we call appointment season. Most pastors begin appointments on July 1st, and every pastor is appointed 1 year at a time. And this is part of our itinerant system in the United Methodist Church if you are ordained as an elder. So that's a lot of the work we do, but so far it's been all online. Though I have been able to travel a couple of times with the family. And I will say, just personal experience, travel has felt very safe. Masking, they have these great videos about how when you mask on an airplane and with the cleaning they have in progress, it's virtually impossible to contract COVID on an airplane, even though there's so many people in a tight space. So that's made travel feel a little bit better as well. We will be resuming some in-person activity as summer comes about and churches can meet outdoors, as well as a few more conference activities can happen outdoors. And then the first big in-person conference event we will plan is in October, when we will meet hopefully in Ogden, Utah, and that will be our annual conference session. So we're waiting until October for a larger conference gathering in person. And we hope to make everything hybrid. Now that we've all learned this technology, I think one of the big gifts is that most churches are going to continue some online presence, as well as go back to in person. So I think that's a gift we've picked up in the process. And certainly at the conference level, we're working on continuing that as well. So let me start with the big overview of our conference, and I'll share a visual. I always think it's helpful to see a visual. This is kind of the map of our conference geography. You can see that we are fully in Montana, Wyoming, Utah, and Colorado. And then we have this tiny portion of Idaho shaded in, and that's Salmon, Idaho, where we have a church. People always ask, how did we scoop up that tiny portion of Idaho? It's simply the way the river and the highways work. It just made sense to have that be within the Mountain Sky Conference. So we have about 370 individual congregations. We have about 60,000 members, United Methodists, within those 4 states, and it covers 460,000 square miles. So this territory is immense. It is a huge, huge territory. We have a mission statement and a vision statement, and I'll read those for you. Our mission is to live in God's grace and abundance as we lead a re-energized, peaceful, and compassionate movement to claim the life-changing love of Jesus Christ for all people. And our vision is to be life-changing, life-saving mission outposts in the communities we serve. And then we follow that with our values. So everything we do, we try to hold to our values, and those include accountability, inclusivity, collaboration, outwardly focused, simplicity with transparency. We are breaking barriers and building bridges and honoring diverse voices and ideas. So that's the broadest picture of the conference. Next, Steve asked me to talk a little bit about my work in leadership development and as the director of connectional ministry. So I'll share with you a little bit about those, and I'm going to pull up the leadership development page because I can show you a little bit about what we cover there. So first I'll say a couple words about being the director of connectional ministry. We call that the DCM, and every conference in the United Methodist Church has somebody named as the DCM. This is the connectional person across the general church. So because we are a global church and we are connectional, there needs to be a named person who really makes that official connection happen. So that's me. So I get to connect a lot with general agencies. The DCM puts on the annual conference business meeting. So I have a planning team that helps with that. And then connecting to our jurisdiction. The Western jurisdiction is the jurisdiction that the Mountain Sky Conference is part of. And I'm so proud of our Western jurisdiction. First, we're the largest geographically. But second, we're the smallest in number. So that means our churches are more spread apart and our bishops have more territory to cover. We take up pretty much the western half of the United States. It's really like Colorado, Montana, and West. And within that, we have, let's see, I believe 7 annual conferences, and we all get to meet together. The DCM of each annual conference and the bishop of each annual conference regularly meet together, and it's called the Mission Cabinet. And then beyond that, there's a Western jurisdiction leadership team, people who are elected to serve. And they lead the every 4 years jurisdictional conference, and they lead in between times as far as budgetary matters. For the Western jurisdiction, we are really committed to spending our dollars with our, what you could call our marginalized communities. We pour most of our budgetary money into making sure that our ethnic churches have support, that we are being inclusive with our LGBTQ community, and that we are able to build according to our values together. So we share resources in a lot of different ways. So that's kind of the job of the DCM, is really that connectional work.
So
Annie, yeah, go ahead.
So connection means you are connecting all the churches together to the conference and making sure they're supported and have financial resources when they need it. Is that what connection means?
Actually, the connection is to the larger denomination.
Okay.
So as far as my position goes, it means connecting to the Western jurisdiction and connecting to the general church and the global church.
Okay.
And then within, I'll tell you a little bit more about within, because we have several departments, in each sort of resources, just like you said, but more than just me, which is good. So each kind of resources, their areas. So let me show you, I think before we go specifically to the leadership development page, let me see about going to the staff page, because this kind of shows you our different areas. All right, let me share my screen. I'll show you kind of how the conference staff looks and breaks down. So we have our bishop, Bishop Karen Oliveto. And then within her Episcopal office, she has an executive assistant and then an intern. So generally we try to support one or more interns from Iliff School of Theology. So the bishop's office often has one or two. Then we have the area that I oversee, which is leadership development and connectional ministry. So this area includes our director of young people's ministry and camping ministry. Our area has an intern, Jeff Gross. He is an Iliff student. We oversee within our camping ministry, one of our camp directors is on our conference staff. His name's Austin, and he has Buckhorn Camp, which is actually right outside of Fort Collins, Colorado. And then we have our event and hospitality coordinator, Shelly Rayburn. She's the one who coordinates district events, annual conference events as far as event space, being the registrar, coordinating with sponsors, all of those kind of things. And then I have an assistant named Pam. She is wonderful. She both assists me and the Board of Ordained Ministry. So the Board of Ordained Ministry comes under the leadership development area. And then Courtney Von Lindern. Courtney is our designer for Next Gen and Inclusiveness Ministries. And this is a specialized ministry that I'm so glad we were able to create about a year ago with help from a church who decided to grant us some funds to really invest in inclusiveness ministries. So Courtney works a lot with the young adult population. They have a student ministry in Missoula, Montana, where they live. And they are also a student at Iliff School of Theology, getting ready to graduate at the end of, or the beginning of June. And then the next area of leadership for the conference is congregational and community vitality. So right here, Jeff Rainwater is my colleague in ministry. He's the superintendent of congregational and community vitality. This is the area that grants money for new church starts, that helps new ideas form. So kind of the innovation, if somebody wants to add a new ministry to their church. Also throughout the year, this area grants quite a few churches money to do either whether they're trying to build up their digital ministry, whether they have an idea for a new missional opportunity that involves the community. And then when it does involve missions and the community, we have a staff member, Janet, who is our halftime mission engagement and resource strategist. So Janet oversees our whole mission team and our disaster relief team. And she does amazing work. She also lives in Montana. And there are many ways to get involved there. And I'll tell you a little bit about that when I tell you all the ways that you can be involved in conference ministries. We have a very part-time worship developer, Dave. He produces material in large part for rural and small churches who may only have a pastor quarter time, which means 10 hours a week. So he produces worship materials where they can create like an online service, and the songs will be right there because many of those churches don't have a choir director or a music department. So he does a lot of that where they can plug and play. And then Dawn Lemons is our amazing program assistant for this area. She handles all the administrative side of it. And then Betty Wynn. Betty is our full-time, she's also ordained an elder. She's our full-time multicultural and advocacy ministries developer. So that would be akin to like a DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion officer. She's really helping us build our racial justice ministries team. And she helps with our cross-cultural, cross-racial appointments. She leads our Clergy of Color retreats. Right now, she's in the midst of partnering for the Lenten journey, which has been called Just Love, which is all about justice and justice opportunities for learning and education. And then we come down to our communications staff. We have a brand new director of communications, so new that her picture's not up here yet. Our brand new director of communications is Evelyn Warren, and she is well known in United Methodist circles because she has worked with almost every general agency over the past 15 years or so. And we were just lucky enough that she was looking to make a transition, and we were able to get her as our director of communications. So I think she'll be a wonderful addition.
Annie,
Yeah.
when you say general agency, what is that exactly?
Oh, that means like UMCOR the General Board of Higher Education and Ministry. So they kind of oversee clergy getting ordained and the whole process of ordination. Our Global Board of Ministries are the ones who oversee UMCOR, and that's disaster relief and international ministry and mission. We have our General Board of Religion and Race. They have tons of educational materials. They do scholarships. And then our General Board of Discipleship. And that's the one I most closely connect with. And they're the ones who connect learning and teaching resources. They also oversee the Upper Room and Cokesbury. So they're kind of the teaching branch of the United Methodist Church. So there's several, I think we say there's 12 general agencies within the United Methodist umbrella. So that's what that refers to.
Thank you.
Yeah. Let's see. And then our last circle is responsible stewardship. And they oversee the trustees, the Council on Finance and Administration, pension and health benefits, and support services for churches. So they support all of our church financial secretaries, all of our church treasurers, and they resource boards of trustees and all of those kind of people who really hold everything together. We have an amazing CFO, Angela Thomas, and then the three up top work with her in all of those areas. Most pastors know Jana Collins because she does benefits, and all clergy are enrolled in the benefits program. And then we have our districts. So we have district superintendents. There are 7 districts and 7 district superintendents. So the Wyoming district, Mark Calhoun oversees the whole state of Wyoming. Chris Carr oversees the Trinity district. This is Southern Colorado and Southeastern Colorado. Deb Christine oversees Montana East. Let's see, down at the bottom, Jan Whitman oversees Montana West. So they sort of split the state of Montana, and Montana acts often together. So a lot of times their district events are all Montana together. Utah and Colorado. Jessica Rooks oversees the Mile High Metro District. That is the district that St. Andrew is in. And Dizenlo Tong represents the Peaks and Pikes Peak District, which is sort of a horseshoe that goes around Metro Denver. So it stretches all the way up to Fort Collins in the top of the state and northeastern part of the state, and then all the way horseshoes down and around sort of to Colorado Springs and a bit to the west, like to West Cliff, and then not quite into the mountains. So each district has a couple of people who work to support them. Each district has a congregational resource minister, which is a half-time clergy position. And that person, we've really been developing that role. They will begin doing cohorts when clergy transition into a new district. They will begin a cohort to really welcome those new clergy in. This is a new kind of support system we'll have, which I'm really excited for. They also do a lot of resourcing to the districts. So many of our small churches have decided to go to a single board governance model. So they've been training those churches of how do you take your 4 or 5 committees and make them into a single board governance model. So they've done a lot of that. They'll do SPR training. They'll do resourcing on lay ministries, lay servant ministries, those kind of things. And then each district also has a district administrator, which is a part-time administrative position. And that takes us kind of to the bottom of our conference staff. So I will go to our ministries page. This gives you a good little overview of our website as well. So at the top, you have a toolbar here, and that's where you find most of our information. And if I go to ministries, that's where a lot of our programming ministries happen. And that's where you can find a lot of information. So if we go down here, you'll see just above leadership development is lay ministries, if anybody's ever interested in laity involvement. And then leadership development comes next. So I won't go through a whole lot, except I want to show you this side menu bar. This kind of tells you a little bit about what leadership development means to our conference. So as I mentioned, we oversee camping ministry and retreat ministry. Often that's with young people. So our young people's director oversees that as well. We include all of these are included in mission and ministry. So we include our vitality, community engagement, disaster preparedness, inclusive ministries, lay ministries, and then we come down to this submenu with leadership development. So we get to coach clergy, and just this year I've developed a new clergy coaching model toward action learning. And this is a really fun kind of thing where 7 people get to participate together in a cohort with an executive coach. And they really work together to kind of solve problems, help people get unstuck, and learn new techniques for really going forward with action learning. They check in with each other about how it's going, really have that support and accountability together. We have the Board of Ordained Ministry. So we're able to support the board who oversees all the candidates who are coming through the process of ministry. We also are able to give grants. So we have courageous leadership grants. And we've decided that's a broad range of things, but it's meant helping churches really branch out into the digital world and connecting online with people. So we've given grants for that. It has to do with anti-racism initiatives. We've given grants for that. Has to do with new ministries and community partnerships. So then we have kind of a collection of leadership webinars. We have the Mountain Sky Ministry Crossroads, which I am going to tell you more about. And we have a Spanish immersion, which Bishop Karen loves to do. And it, until the pandemic, was an annual trip that laity or clergy could join Bishop Karen and go for 10 days to I think it's called Cuernavaca, Mexico. And it's a place where they have an Institute for Liberation Theology, and you stay with a family. You get to do life with people for 10 days, and you go to classes every day, both Spanish classes and liberation theology classes. And I've heard it's just incredible. So that gives you a bit of a broad overview. Any questions at this point?
Oh, Annie, maybe it'll be good for me to mention that for those that don't know, St. Andrew gives about 10% of our annual revenue to the conference to help support all of these ministries. Is that common for most churches, 10% of their annual revenue?
Yep, that is common for just about everybody, and we call it a mission share. And then on top of that, we ask churches to give 3% to general and jurisdictional apportionments. So that's the way that we help connect with our broader United Methodist system. And often it can be confusing kind of to understand how the two work together. But it's generally a 10% to the conference and a 3% to the general and jurisdictional church bodies, and those who, it supports the bishops, it supports our global bishops. The US almost in full supports all of our global bishops, and those are the fastest areas of growth for United Methodism, so that's really important. It also supports UMCOR and wider disaster relief. So it's that wider apportionment giving is really important for our United Methodist denomination as a whole.
So it seems like, this is Bob, it seems like there's some great programs, and I mean this in a positive sense, but that's the big churches like St. Andrew, we're really supporting all the ministries for these small churches all across the region, which they probably wouldn't be able to do squat if it wasn't for that. I mean, they wouldn't be able to develop, I would think. Wow,
right. No, Bob, that's a good point. That connectional aspect of the church, I think, is probably the most important aspect of the United Methodist Church, is that we care for one another. So right. Because of St. Andrew's giving, small churches in Wyoming and Utah and Montana are able to do things they otherwise maybe wouldn't be able to do, and are also supported by a full conference staff, which otherwise wouldn't happen. So yeah, right. That's the importance of that connectional giving.
Look at that person you talked, I forget his name, but he's developing all those programs. He's doing, I mean, they wouldn't, what would they do? I mean,
the Sunday ministry.
The Sunday ministry, they don't have materials, they don't have so it sounds like you're doing some great work to spread the word of God, Jesus across the conference that might not get this kind of support.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly the hope of what the conference exists for, and hopefully how we've positioned conference staff. So tried to get them out in districts as much as possible and really resourcing for the context that they're in. And we found so much because we joined in 2018, we merged into the Mountain Sky Conference, and we found there are just vast differences between the needs of Northern Montana and the needs of Western Utah and Southern Colorado and Wyoming. I mean, the needs are just so diverse, and it's so important to have a person on the ground in those districts.
Annie,
Jane, go ahead.
no, it's not in our district, but do you know of any United Methodist Church involvement?
That's a great question, Jim. I think through our missions area, I think we may have a team that is regularly involved, especially with immigration, and then probably connected to our Western jurisdiction. So I know our Western jurisdiction certainly has a rapid response team for immigration, and some various teams who have before the pandemic done border relief and border trips for education, and really have stayed involved. So I think the pandemic, the COVID restrictions have really limited that, but I know that people are certainly involved. So I would think within our mission area that we have a team that's still connected and sort of ready to go when things open up.
Thank you.
Annie, what states are in the Western jurisdiction?
Yeah, we include almost all of the Western states. So everything from Alaska to Hawaii, and then all of us in between. So we include the Pacific Northwest, California Pacific, California Nevada, Desert Southwest, Mountain Sky, and Oregon, Idaho. I think those are all of our conferences.
Thank you.
Sure. All right, so Steve, here, give me some guidance here. So I could either jump into ways that each and every laity can be involved with the conference, or I can jump into the general church a little bit more first. I can do either order.
Oh, let's do the laity,
Okay.
Annie, because I think a lot of people at an average church don't know if there's anything the conference has to offer them.
Mhm.
So what good does it do for us as average St. Andrew congregants?
Yeah, so this is the exciting part for me. Laity Ministries falls under leadership development, and I'm so excited that I get to work with our 3 conference co-lay leaders. So we elect 3 so that we can geographically represent the most area that we can. So our 3 lay leaders, one is Barry Welliver. He lives in Utah. One is Nancy Flint. She lives in Montana. And one is Gayla Jo Slauson, and she lives in Grand Junction. So those 3 lay leaders coordinate our Board of Laity Ministry. And then as a wider connection, they regularly meet with Bishop Karen and the cabinet. They regularly meet with me, and then they kind of are able to help grow and strengthen laity ministries as a whole. So I would say I'll name several areas, and then I'll make sure I get to Steve some links so that you can follow up and click around on stuff and just kind of see for yourself. So you don't have to memorize this stuff now. We'll do a follow-up email. So here's some of the ways that you can participate. One of the ways is in district or sub-district leadership. Each district has a geographical area. Each contains approximately 50 churches. And there are several ways. So each district board of laity tries to resource people who want to become a certified lay speaker or a certified lay minister or a lay servant minister. There's several programs, and they were all developed by the United Methodist Church. And then each of them has specific classes you can take, and they've all become online now. And so you can have a certificate in, either you can have a basic lay speaking certificate, or you can have an advanced lay ministry certificate. And that means you've had a class, it's like a 6-week class on preaching. You've had a 6-week class on like administration. And so a lot of times the smaller and more rural churches will be sure they have at least one certified lay minister or one certified lay speaker, so that when the pastor isn't available, or if the pastor isn't there every week, they have trained laity who are ready to step in and who feel called to serve in those ways. So any laity can take part in those lay servant ministry courses. So that's a good way. And that in large part happens through districts. You can also try to be a sub-district or district lay leader. And that means you would serve on the board of laity. And this is a group who meets quarterly online. And they really get to inform each other about the work of the other districts. They support each other in sort of common affinities. And overall, they get to work towards what the annual conference is going to do for laity ministries, mission projects. If we have new ideas, like we're just now starting to think about how can we fundraise for scholarships for ILIF students. We're finding more and more, there's some studies that have just come out that say the percentage of clergy under 35 has dropped to an all-time low. And a large part of that reason is the cost of seminary. And just in general, people have an anxiety about what's going to happen to the United Methodist Church. Will I really be guaranteed employment after I've spent all this money in seminary? So sort of to, again, be as missional as possible, we want to start thinking about how could we in each district maybe have a named scholarship at ILIF for a student. And a named scholarship, all it takes is $2,500 a year. So even a church could take this on, but a district could certainly take this on. So it would be like the Mile High Metro District Scholarship for an ILIF student. And if we could do one in every district, that's 7 student scholarships. So we're trying to think in those ways, and the Board of Laity get to play a big part of that. And then beyond district laity leadership, there's also being a delegate to annual conference. So each church sends a delegate for every ordained pastor they have serving there. And then each church can also send equalization members. So we have this disproportionate number of clergy because even clergy in retirement get a vote at annual conference. So we always have to equalize that number and add an equal number of laity so that there's an equal number of voting members when we're at annual conference. So every district gets a pool of equalization lay members. So if you're ever interested in that, you would just send an email to your district superintendent saying you're interested in that. And in the spring at the district gatherings, that's when they generally elect the pool of equalization members for that coming annual conference. So that's one option too. And then beyond that, I would say for the everyday laity person who just wants to stay informed and maybe be aware of everything that's happening, every person can join conference emails. We send one a week. That's general information. And then my counterpart, Jeff, and I send one every other week that's specific to leadership and vitality. And it'll really just keep you in the loop of things that are coming up, things you might want to join up with. There's always, webinars and educational things and some really practical church things about committees and leadership. So that's something I'll send to Steve, how you can enroll in the conference email. Great. And then here's one I want to show you. I'm going to share my screen again. This is brand new. We just started this during the pandemic, knowing most of us, the number one thing we lost was community. So as soon as we were all stuck at home, our church communities are probably like the number one thing in our life, the number one place of community in our lives. And we knew that pastors needed resources, but our laity needed resources and connection too. So we got online with this platform called Mighty Networks, and we created our own online Mountain Sky Ministry Crossroads. So this is a learning and community platform. It's loosely, I would say, like a Facebook for our conference. Anybody, any laity, any clergy can join up with us. I think we have about 450 members right now. And this is what I'm going to show you my screen of. So you can just take a little overview look. And I will share with Steve an invitation link. So any of you who are interested can click that link. It'll say, do you want to join up? And you'll say yes. And then it sends Jeff and I a little notice. Hey, these people want to join up. We approve it. and then you get to create your own profile. So this is the sort of the discovery page. This is kind of your overview of what we have posted. When you become a member, see my little picture up top here, you get your own profile. So you get an account and you set up your profile, giving some information, who you are, where you are, that kind of thing. And then you also get to set up your own network settings. So I always tell everybody, you go in there and you click on just notify me once a day with my, they call it a daily digest. That it'll give you one email a day, just like, here's the overview of what activity that happened. If you're interested, you click in it and it takes you to Crossroads, the website, and you can kind of click around for more. Otherwise, it likes to email you every time something happens and you don't want that. So I always help people get the right email settings. So your profile is set up there. So you can see some of our welcoming documents. So when you get on, you would kind of read through these welcoming documents. This is sort of Crossroads 101, why we built Crossroads. So this has our overview of wanting to connect clergy and laity. This is really a way that you get to know people from all these other states and see what they're doing in ministry. So you can kind of click around the welcome, and then we feature some things that are coming up. So what's coming up soon is a cohort called Small Church Vitality. Our ILIF intern has been working on this project, and he'll reveal his research and really kind of give an overview of the gifts of a small church and where a lot of our small churches are finding vitality. So that will be a 3-week, just after Easter. It'll be a 3-week cohort. Anybody can participate. It'll be a Zoom session. But if I click on the cohort, it will take me to this little activity page. So I'll get to see every other member, what they're doing. Jeff is the one leading it. So he'll post videos, he'll post articles. These are all articles. So you can click on any link to kind of find more. So that'll be especially a highlight for our small churches. In the left-hand corner, you can always go back to the regular network. So it kind of takes you home. And then we have these sections of top posts, the ones that have had most activity, and then topics. And the topics are really neat because you can follow each of our topics that we've created, and then you can see the resources we've posted there. So one of our big ones has been ministry in digital spaces. We really have been trying to resource churches on how they can go with live stream, how they can be more interactive with live video, how people can learn the tools they need. So we have like all these articles. We post a lot of our video recordings here too, so you can watch things later. So just lots of cool information. And then we have when you go to your homepage, it's kind of a news feed, sort of like Facebook. So it's just the people on our network, and you can post what's going on. Sunday night series, we have a Wednesday conversation series. You can usually find the registration link. You can see what people are talking about. It's just a really fun community platform. And then real quick, I'll just show you. So we have a members page. You're always welcome to scroll through all the members. We have this little about section that says we have 457 members. And we also, there's an app that goes with this if you'd rather get your information on your phone on an app. And then there's an invite button. So this is how I will give Steve this little link at the bottom. We'll copy and paste it in an email, and then anybody can click on it to kind of come into this platform to get to join us. The thing we're working on right now are workshops, and we want to provide really good informational online classes. So right now we have one on SPR committees. And this is a step-by-step, you work through it on your own. It's 3 simple rules for an SPR committee, and it's kind of like an online training. So all churches can access this, and we're going to create one for more and more of our church committees and groups. And actually, Al Goff and I, we try to catch up every couple months, and he was saying, oh man, it would really be helpful to have one on lay leadership. Every church has a lay leadership group, and then the conference has laity leadership. So I think that's a great idea, and we'll continue to develop these kind of workshops. So we also have Crossroads Ministry Network, where you can learn more about this very platform, and we have it as a workshop.
This is neat, Annie. Thank you. We will check out Crossroads, and I will pass along the link. We are at 11:17, and I know folks would love to ask you about the wider conference international. Are we still on track to split as a denomination over the same-sex marriage issue with the plan that was agreed before, with the conservative churches leaving to create a new denomination of their own? What do you hear about that lately?
Yeah, so I've pulled up two things, and I'll show you each of them briefly. And again, those are links I'll put in so that Steve can share them. And these are just two trusted places that I get my information from. And so when you want to read more, it's good to know who your trusted sources are. So I'm going to show you each of those. One of them is called United Methodist Insight, and they come out with, I want to say it's a weekly issue, and it's an e-news, and it will connect you to a variety of articles that have been written by either our general agencies, so staff people at the highest United Methodist level, or others. And let me show you what this looks like. This is how the email looks. And I think this issue is particularly a good one. So this one talks about what's coming up with potential for the split. And the reason it's hard to answer that question is because of all the moving parts. So what we know for this year is that there will be no general conference this year outside of a one-day special session, May 8th. And on May 8th, the Council of Bishops and the General Commission are deciding what will be dealt with on that one-day conference. It will not be, as far as we know, it will not be the split of the church. So that means it will be held over again until the regular session of General Conference meets, and they have determined that will be end of August 2022. So again, the church is left in limbo kind of until then. So if groups or churches begin to split away before that, they will have to use the measures that are in place right now to do that. If churches choose to remain, everybody sort of has to follow the rules in place right now. Until the next deciding body, which is the next general conference. So this issue talks about a lot of things. Unfortunately, we lost one of our top leaders in the United Methodist Church. He was the general secretary of discipleship, the board of discipleship. His name's Junius Dotson, and he just died February 25th. He was only 55 years old, and he had aggressive pancreatic cancer, and he only knew about it for about 2 months. Before he died. So we had a big honoring, and they lead you to the service if you want to watch the service for him. And then this issue talks about the split. So we have one linked article that talks about reaction to the second postponement of the 2020 General Conference. And then we have some articles linked about how people are talking about the decisions and the possibilities. There's an article link about May 8th in particular. And then there's a couple of links talking about what would be the possibilities for split. So they have an article here about the protocol for reconciliation and grace. And then this is interesting, the Alaska Omnibus proposal. This is kind of a new proposal that's been formulated. So you can read about it here. Then there's, this is just chock full of information. Then below that, there is the latest information on the most conservative branch that desires to break off. They're calling themselves the Global Methodist Church, and that's what's been known as the Wesley Covenant Foundation. And so they've now named themselves the Global Methodist Church. And then we have on the opposite side, the very, very progressive called the Liberation Methodist Connection. So you can read about that there. And then we have what I think is really cool, a group who's created this document called Out of Chaos Creation. And it talks about how can we start new conversations? How can we not be about strife and bitterness and split, but how do we come up with creation out of this chaos? So you can read about that there. So much information. And then they do further links at the very bottom. So again, this one's called United Methodist Insight. And I think it's a really good way to read about the connection. And then the other one I'll show you is just a very popular blog. And this is a blogger that I recently interviewed on one of our Vital Conversations. He researches like crazy. He will link you to all of his primary sources. and he is a progressive United Methodist. He's pastors a church in Seattle, and he really gets into all of the most contentious issues and tries to present both sides, what we know, and then he asks people to chime in. So this particular week, and so his site is called Hacking Christianity. He has a weekly blog, and then he'll send you an email if you sign up for it. So this one's called A Better Way, Problematic Choices for the 2021 Special Conferences in the UMC. So in this one, he has a summary. He talks all about what if this happens, then this. What if this happens, then this. And he talks about it like a game of chess. And he really goes through all the options. So this is not, this is only backed by himself. He's a United Methodist clergy, but he is a trusted source, and he has about 8,000 followers. So that's one that, you know, often a lot of clergy will read as well, and know that he's really done his research. So there's a couple things, there's no answers that I have, but a couple of places where you can kind of stay tuned.
Good,
Annie,
thank
what was
you.
the first source?
Yeah, the first one's United Methodist Insight.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Go ahead, anybody with questions for Annie? The last few minutes we have. Maybe Annie can stay with us for a few more minutes if
Sure.
she can, past 11:30. We don't have to stop exactly at 11:30, but go ahead.
I assume, Steve, that you'll forward on those links to the information.
Sure, you bet.
That'd be great.
You bet. Annie, have you done a lot of traveling to small churches and done leadership development with them? And how are they doing in the COVID period here?
Yeah, we've seen that. I haven't done a lot of travel during this COVID year, but before that, I did get to do a fantastic tour of Western Montana, and some of a tour of Wyoming, and it's just amazing to be with the people, you know, to learn about the ministries happening in those contexts, and to realize how much we don't know until we go to a place. But I will say, during the pandemic, what we've heard is that it's been really challenging for those small churches, mostly because of their church size. So in that under 50, and a lot of them are way under 50 as far as attendance or membership, that those churches, the one identifying factor is relationships. And because a lot of them are out where internet is not great, they had not been connected online at all. So when the pandemic hit and nobody was able to go to a building, it was a real loss for those communities. So I know our pastors have been trying to do, they went back to print newsletters, doing mailings as often as possible. They will go visit their congregation members door to door and stand 6 feet back to visit people. They are trying to have drive-up communion. A lot of them in the warmer weather months were definitely still doing outdoor worship. It was so essential for people to really gather, because that is their connection place. So I think it really did hit our small churches very hard. And then step by step, I think our churches have been connecting more online. So most of them either use YouTube or Facebook, and most use a Zoom connection to really keep in touch. And I would say a good 80–85% of our churches now have some sort of online way of connecting.
This is Terry. I have a question. Do we help churches set up a web page of sort?
We have some resources where we certainly have, you know, kind of tutorials and here's what we would suggest, those kind of things, but we don't have a person that sets up an individual church's website. But we certainly have, like, our part-time IT person would happily talk to anybody at a church who says, we just don't know where to start. So we've tried to make some of those connections. Also in districts, the district superintendent will try to connect the pastors who either have a team or have really excelled at having an online presence and website. They'll try to connect them with the churches who don't have one, so there can be some resource sharing and things like that.
Annie, I have a question. You indicated that we have 60,000 members in our Mountain Sky.
Mm-hmm.
And pre-COVID, I'm sure that was probably a pre-COVID number.
Mhm.
I'm sure we had attendance figures or participation figures or things. Do we have an attendance or participation figures as to how COVID has affected us? Have we become more engaged, less engaged, or whatever?
Yeah, so this is interesting. The way we've collected statistics in the past is on an annual basis, there's this deadline, and all pastors try to avoid it, but there's this deadline when they have to turn in their statistics for the year. And it means how many people came to worship, how many attended Sunday school, how many baptisms, how many confirmations. It kind of collects all of that data. But we didn't have a category for online worship, and we didn't have a category for online reach, sort of beyond your own congregation. And now we're finding these new categories where churches are really finding new populations of ministry. So this year we've, I'm not the one exactly who does it, thank goodness, but our statistician and some very smart people have worked to try to figure out how can we collect more of the statistics of things happening now. So I'm not sure exactly how they worded the questions, but I know they've asked for live stream attendance or online worship ministry presence, sort of trying to collect some of that data to see where we're at. I can say that the information from 2 years ago, we were closer to 65,000 members across the conference, and now we're down really around 60,000. I think that's truly shows that we've had quite a few churches who are dwindling, either that have closed altogether or their members have died. I mean, they're just an aging population, and we continue to see that, like, sort of we're dying faster than we are growing. But some of it, and the 2020 statistics have not quite come out. So those should come out soon. But we're going off the 2019 numbers right now, and that's where we get that 60,000 figure. But we have heard just anecdotally that so many churches are finding a wider presence now that they've gone online, reaching people in multiple states, in multiple countries. And I know St. Andrew has found the same.
Annie, I've got another question. I've always got more questions, but do the rural churches, small churches in the country areas, do they generally accept the gay rights position of our conference and our progressive theology, or do they resist that still?
I would say there's quite a continuum. I think almost every church and church congregation who's met Bishop Karen and Robin, Bishop Karen's spouse, have just loved them so much that it's helped some people come from a place of thinking they've never met a lesbian couple to knowing one and really just loving them for who they are and the passion they have for their ministry. And so I would say that in our conference has really shifted along that continuum. Then again, when we all meet and our district superintendents kind of give updates on their churches, and when we think about pastoral shifts, there are certainly places where we say we don't feel like that pastor would be comfortable or protected or honored for who they are. And for a lot of our churches, our pastors end up just not claiming the whole of who they are. They can be the church pastor for that church, but they don't share with that church everything about themselves and their personal life. So that's sort of part of the continuum, and we continue to claim that our values will be that we will love everyone. And that means you can be conservative and certainly have a place in every church. You can be progressive and have a place. But where we say we will protect all people as people, including, our clergy of color, our LGBTQ clergy, our female clergy, and our young clergy. So, in that case, there's all of these historically kind of marginalized groups that we've said, these are people we will protect, and we do everything we can to. But sometimes, and again, we have these cases where we still need advocacy for our female pastors, for our LGBTQ pastors, for our clergy of color. So there, I mean, it feels like we still have so much work to do, but I think we're learning some of the steps we need to take to educate congregations before they receive a new pastor, so that we can do some of that work before a new pastor comes in. And, you know, for congregations, they don't get to choose anymore. They don't get to say, oh, of course, I want the 35-year-old man with a wife and 2 kids. And in fact, here's the irony. We're finding so many churches can't afford family insurance anymore that the person with a family is no longer desirable. Churches can't afford them. They want the single person who's either in a retired status or who doesn't have any dependents, so they can just provide single coverage insurance. And that's a really sad state, but it's sort of where we are right now.
Thank you.
And I have a question. It seems like you would need, you know, the bigger churches, you know, watching St. Andrew, look at, there's always at least 30 people in this class. And all these things, virtual is spread, right? Well, we had someone from Canada, right, Steve, that was on different sign. So the bigger churches seem to be expanding because of COVID, almost in a virtual sense. But you almost need a strategy to restart the smaller churches. It seems to me that they just basically dwindled to nothing. And the way you're talking, there's no, you know, her father lives in, you know, Pemberton, Ohio, very small farm town, and they have, the internet is horrible, and you know, so I can picture it, right?
Yeah.
Is there any like strategy to almost like restart these small churches to like kick them off again or something once we get to a certain point, so we could?
Yeah,
You know,
there's several ideas. So certainly our vitality area is looking at that in several ways. So one way they're looking at it is, okay, if some congregations choose, if the denomination splits and some congregations choose to join up with the Global Methodist Church, then how do we start a new branch in that community? What happens to the remnant that's left that wants to be United Methodist? So we have sort of the starting of some plans for how would we help to resource and restart those new branches in those communities. And then we have, you know, Bishop Karen is really committed to keeping churches open as much as possible in these small communities, because the United Methodist Church is generally the only grace-filled presence in that town. If there are other churches, they are generally much more conservative and not the grace-filled presence. So she just feels so strongly that our footprint is vital to these towns. So in that way, we try to offer grants. We're looking at cooperative ministry again, where maybe there would be one sort of hub, larger church that then resources trained laity, maybe retired pastors to go out to smaller communities, or in some way resource and revitalize some of the smaller hubs. So those are a couple of the ideas. It's certainly on our minds.
Yeah, no, that's great. It's glad to hear that you're yeah. It's glad to hear you.
What a challenge.
What a challenge.
Yeah.
But I think it's well worth it. I think, you know, that you can come up with something. Wow. And I didn't even think about that too. The split, like you talk about, if they go with the global, the small ones probably are because they're more conservative. You said so. Now, how do you? It's yeah. Wow. What a well, you know,
What a mind bender.
that's why they pay the big
What a
bucks.
mind bender.
Yeah, mind bender.
What a mind bender.
Well, everybody, it's 11:35. We need to wrap up a little bit. Annie has to get to St. Andrew for a children's event for her kids at noon. So we want to give her time if she's going there. Thanks, everybody, for a good discussion. Thank you, Annie. It's so good to see you again and all your good information. We appreciate that. We'd love to have you back when we're back in the building.
I would love it.
You'll
We'd
send us
love
the
to.
links out though,
Yes,
for
he
sure,
said-
with Crossroads. that
I
Facebook-
will
Okay.
send out all the links that Annie sends to me. And if you want to get in touch with her in person or by email, her email address is on the conference website. So get it there. Thank you, everybody, and God bless.
Great to see everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.